You're not Lucas.
I'm not Lucas.
Hey guys, this is Sean Nelson. You may recognize him from our older video of how to do a bearing change. Sean's known as the bearing guy, but he'd prefer to be known as the curb guy because he's probably the best person at curb tricks in Canada. So
That's not true. Kyle Taylor lives in Canada.
oh, he does. I forgot. We need to get him out here more often.
Disclaimer. On the mainland. How about that?
Yeah, West Coast land pirate. He's got the most swag in Canada, that's for sure.
Yes.
So we're here to talk about bumpers. So it's a bit of a battle of the bumpers today.
Battle. Bumpers.
We got Badger wheel, float life,
Get your Badgers.
and flight fins.
Flight
all
fins.
making bumpers.
Or butter bumper. Flight fins, float life. Yes.
Which will come out victorious? Well, we're about to find out. So how many hours do you think you had per bumper here?
I have ridden each one of these bumpers for no less than 3 weeks on my board, and that's trail riding, pump track riding, curb riding, basically all types of riding. I don't like to limit myself to any one type of terrain. I like it all, so whatever's on the table for the day, that's what these have been put through. So I feel like I've given all 3 of them a fair shake in pretty much all the riding environments.
Perfect. So before we get into the actual reviews, I just want to have a bias disclaimer.
Bias.
We both have biases. The reason why he's doing this review, well, one, he's much more of a curb guy than I am, but I'm now affiliated with the Float Life Canada. EVs is also Float Life Canada. We do all the Float Life Canada orders. And so it would just be, I feel wrong for me to review the bumpers. So Sean Nelson here has bias as well, but it's more of a riding bias, not to any particular brand. So I'll let him go ahead and talk about his bias.
That's fair. Yeah, I have no brand loyalty, as it were. Nobody's paying for my one-wheel experience but me and Team Visa. So having said that, my bias would be that I am basically a lifelong skateboarder. I had a skateboard from the ages of about 9 to 25, and that was sort of all I did. So, you know, that whole wasted youth thing. I was that kid, if you will. So having said that, my bias naturally sort of feeds towards anything that is geared towards or orientated towards skateboarding and that sort of stuff. And I think it's fair to say that Jeff from the Float Life is obviously an old skateboarder like me, not as old, but and so his stuff, a lot of his stuff, I feel like it is geared towards skateboarding and that sort of stuff. So I'll just put that out there that, you know, if I have a bias, it would be towards Float Life products because of the skateboarding crossover.
That makes sense. So, which one do you want to start with? I know we broke this down into, how many categories did you have when you did the reviews?
We did. I brought that piece of paper. We broke them down into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 categories. We have durability / material wear, build quality, slickness, nudgeability, I'm not sure if that's a word, but it is today, clearance, and handling performance. So I don't know that there's one that I want to talk about straight out of the gate. I'd sort of like to talk about maybe durability, material wear, and then go over all 3 of those bumpers on that topic. So from a durability, material wear standpoint, I rated the Badger a 10, the B.A.N.G an 8, and the Butter a 7. The main reason that the Badger gets the 10 is because they managed to relocate the corner screw, which is the highest wear area on any bumper, including the crap Future Motion bumpers.
How are they able to do that?
They basically made a little bracket that comes off of the inside of the rail, and you bolt it in there, and it fills in this negative space, and it follows it, and it basically more or less does away with the top post hole, which was also an inherently weak design in the Future Motion bumper. I'm sure most of you have taken your bumper off at some point or another and couldn't get it out because the brass insert inside there was spinning. You had to break the bumper off, hold the brass insert with needle nose and undo it, and then put a new bumper on. Super common. I have broken no less than 20 Future Motion bumpers in 3 years.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's why the Badgers get the 10, is basically just based on the fact that they managed to, and it's a brilliant idea, all credit goes to Robert there for thinking that one through and getting it to the point where that is no longer a high wear area and you could wear all the way down through. The plate is super thick there, so I imagine these would wear for quite a long time.
Yeah, as for the material, would you say one of the materials lasts longer than the others?
It's tough for me to say on that topic. I know personally I used to do bearing and power transmission sales. That's why I'm the bearing guy, as it were. And we used to sell a lot of industrial plastics, and UHMW is the most durable, high wear resistance, slippery plastic that you can get in the industry. Having said that, both the Butter and the Badger are made out of plastics, and nobody knows what they're made out of. So I can't really speculate.
I tried to get out of them. They would not divulge their secrets.
Yeah, they both kept that to themselves. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, if they wanted to release what they're made out of, then maybe somebody that knows more could say one would be more durable than the other. But based on my knowledge and experience, UHMW is the strongest, slipperiest, most industrial plastic.
And everyone knows the durability of those because everyone's pretty much used float plates.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been, well, maybe not all of us, but I certainly have been riding float plates for the last 3 years on my boards. So, and one thing I did want to mention in a durability standpoint for the butter bumpers, or the butters from Flight Fins there, is they actually basically added some material here, and they extended the bottom of the board out so that this screw is basically, they didn't reposition it, but they did add a lot of plastic up here and basically increase the amount of material to wear before you could get to the point where you're actually wearing the screw head down, which again is probably the most common or second most common complaint with any of the existing bumpers, Future Motion included. So, did that cover?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah. I think so.
My verbal diarrhea is kicking in here. Trying to get it all out.
Have a sip of beer.
Oh,
cheers.
Cheers. Yes.
Got a tap in the back. Thanks for the idea, Jeff. They got a kegerator at their place too, and I'm like, I have to do the same.
Cheers. Very nice. Oh, that's tasty.
Orange Dreamsicle from Strathcona Brewing.
I like
it's a
that.
Good beer.
Wow.
Even though it's expired. Does beer really expire though?
We'll let you know later. From the next one that we had there was build quality. So on those ones, I mean, they're all extremely well built. I don't really feel like any one of these is a step down compared to the stock Future Motion bumpers. All of these are a much better product all the way across the board.
Yeah, I have to say, even just picking them, each one of them up, you can just feel the quality difference.
Solid.
Every single one is an upgrade from the stock bumper,
I mean,
hands down.
These are typically inherently weak. You can see how reinforced that is, how much extra material is in there.
And that's the butter.
That's the butter. The Badger removed it all together with the bracket that he installed in there. So, you know.
That's a really smart idea.
Yeah, really, really
Good
well.
job, Robert.
And then Jeff at the Float Life, he upgraded the size of that insert in there and obviously added quite a bit of material strength around there. And this being UHMW, again, it is much, much tougher than the stock Future Motion plastic. So from a build quality standpoint, I gave the B.A.N.G a 10 and I gave the Badger and the Butter a 9. I really don't think that one is superior or miles ahead of the other one here. You know, this is maybe where my bias kicks in, and I'm a little bit.
Is it because it's solid UMHW? Is that partly why the build quality is one extra notch
Yeah,
on there? I mean,
like,
9s and 10s are, you don't get much better than that. So
yeah, I like the feel of the UHMW on the bottom of the board, and that, again, I've been riding that for years, so it's definitely what I'm used to. So it, you know, it could just come down to that, but I like the tactile feel of the UHMW when I'm nudging or sliding or any of that sort of stuff on there. So again, I don't really have any criticisms as far as the build quality goes. They're all great bumpers. I don't feel like anybody's going to lose. Slickness, same thing. I mean, I gave the B.A.N.G a 10, the Butter and the Badger a 9. What I will say in regards to slickness is that from a hardness standpoint, the butters feel like they may well be the slickest, but I don't feel like they're slipperier than the UHMW. That's just maybe a perception thing.
Oh, just
or
from
whatever.
touch, you mean just like hand touch? Feel?
Just sliding on the curbs and
Okay.
stuff like that. And I mean, I think maybe one thing that's fair to mention, or we do want to mention here, is that the B.A.N.G bumpers have a subtle curve that's added to this, which for anybody that might be familiar with a skateboard realizes that the bottom of a skateboard is concave. And so me and my friend David, who actually developed the idea to put a shim under there and curve the bottom of the float plate almost 2 years ago now, we've actually been riding curved float plates way before Jeff came out with that idea. Jeff actually contacted me, asked me how I thought of it, what I thought, and I said, I definitely feel like it's something you should put on there. So he put one on here. It's subtle, but the reality is that when you're used to it, it gives you the ability to sort of rock and manipulate the bottom of the board as you're sliding across a flat surface, whereas the other two, you just basically have a flat surface locking out on a flat surface.
So that's why the Float Life ones get an extra point.
Yeah,
over
for
the other
slickness, because in theory, well, not in theory, in reality, there's less material touching the curb. Even if they're all the same slickness, the fact that there's less material touching the curb with the B.A.N.Gs, I got to give them the extra point.
Perfect.
All right. Nudgeability. This is my specialty, I guess.
You're a nudge master, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a little video B-roll here of him doing that big nudge. So you got to send me that video now.
I will,
But
absolutely.
Look at this thing. That's insane.
All right, so from a nudgeability standpoint, I'm going to give the B.A.N.Gs a 10. The reason I'm going to give the B.A.N.Gs a 10 is they actually took this angle on the back of the bumper and they actually made it steeper than the stock Future Motion bumper. And this will not really matter to anybody that doesn't do big curb nudges. Small curb nudges, you might notice these things. They could start to sort of register to you. But if you're doing big curb nudges, and when I say big, I mean taller than the top of the front of your board, big, then these all become very relevant factors. So as much as I'm going to go into a bit of detail here, it's probably safe to say that realistically, 7 out of 10 one-wheel riders probably don't care what I'm talking about. But this bevel is steeper than the Future Motion bevel, and so when you slam the board onto the back here, you actually have the ability to rock this up like that and get the tire lifting up off the ground before the nose comes into contact with whatever you're trying to climb up here.
Smart. I know those guys, Jeff, they went through rendition after rendition after rendition they didn't rush that bumper to market. They really tried to think of everything.
And you can
based on their riding style.
Yeah, and you can see why they did it, because it basically allowed them to innovate a whole bunch of new tricks where they're on the board and they're sliding it around on the back of the board and they're able to lift the tire off the ground and actually slide the thing around. So the Badger bumpers, it's hard to see here, but this before, well, maybe you can still see it. He's actually got a bevel, and then it's a bevel again. So it's a two-stage bevel. And I noticed the same thing when riding that. I can slam it down and I can activate the first bevel, or if I really slam it down, I can activate the second bevel.
Right.
Again, that's a nice bevel. Allows for lots of lever and ground clearance and that sort of stuff.
That gives the B.A.N.Gs a 10 nudgeability, and you give the Badgers an 8?
An 8, yeah, I give the Badgers an 8 because it is a shallower angle than that.
Yeah.
And here's why I give the Butters a 6. They basically added a bunch of material here. You can see how thick those two are there. So they've added a bunch of material to the bottom of the board, and I understand why they did it. Put more material there, increase the wearability, the durability, and try to keep these screws away from getting ground down, which again is probably top 1 or 2 complaints about the stock bumper. The other side of that coin is that when this is sitting on the ground at rest, this bevel is on the ground. So when I slam the tail into the ground, I have no ability to rock this any further. I'm basically locked out with the board as it's sitting on the ground before you even get on it.
Right.
So The other side of the coin is that added material also is now on the front of my board, so they've lowered the front of my board by what I would guess is close to a ½ inch in there.
So how do you say ½ inch less clearance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so this would be relevant in...
Which we're getting into next, actually, in your clearance score.
Yeah, exactly. Clearance, nudgeability, they're one and the same. You know, the limit in the clearance, it limits how much I can nudge or exactly what I can climb over here. And so, again, now we're going to go into clearance. Again, based on the steep shim or the bevel on the back of the bangs, I've given them a 10. The Badger gets a 9 based on the exact same thing that I just covered from the nudgeability standpoint. And the Butters get a 6. And the reason, again, it's the exact same thing. Downhill, steep descents, your tail is going to touch sooner, reducing your ground clearance. Same scenario riding up a steep technical trail. Your nose is going to touch sooner, reducing your ground clearance.
Right.
I get why they put it in there.
Yeah, so people looking for just not wanting to wear their board down quicker and wear those screws, they might be more interested in something like the Butters. But
yeah,
if they care more about ground clearance, and then they might be interested in the Bangs or the Badgers.
Yeah, I'd say if you're an extreme trail rider or a trick rider, you're probably going to lean towards the Badger or the Bang for those reasons. If you just ride your one wheel around, you want a nice, durable, long-lasting bumper, the Butter is a great example. One thing I do want to add with the Butter here, and it's weird and I never really considered it till I put them on the board, is they actually make my board feel more solid. It changes, I want to say, the resonance of the board, and that would be like the feeling or the vibration that I get through my entire body and I get feedback from here. And I really, really did like the way that the Butter bumpers made my board feel much more solid. So to their credit, and I believe I saw something to that effect in their advertising, that they sort of, there was a comment about that. I can't remember exactly what it was. On that note of feel, my preference for feel, guess what? Surprise, surprise. It goes back to the Bang. I told you I have a bias. Okay. Again, it's the UHMW, which I'm very comfortable with, very used to, so it's natural. One thing I want to comment on with the Badgers is the great idea of putting the bracket in there to relocate those screws away from the high wear area is great. The knock that I have against that, and it's very minor, but I'm going to give you all my details, whether you think they're relevant or not, is that these actually give my board a bit of a hollow feeling, and it's because the bracket inside here is basically hollow, and so my board just doesn't feel as solid when I slam it into a curb or when I'm sliding or when I do a nudge or on a steep downhill descent when the tail starts dragging and I start shitting my pants, that sort of stuff. You know, it's a minor thing. You may notice it, you may not, but I just kind of want to put it all out there. So, you know, that's my comment about that.
So it sounds like the one that's still on your board, the one that you're going to choose to ride, is going to go to the Bangs.
Yeah, the Bangs are on my board now. And I mean, I have all 3 sets of these bumpers. They're all going on boards. I have more than one wheel. Could you believe it? So from a handling performance standpoint, I guess realistically, that's kind of just a sort of an amalgamation of everything that we talked about there in an overview. I give the Bangs a 10. The Badger's a 9, and the Butter's an 8. I mean, they're all great bumpers. You know, my only real knock for me personally against the Butter is the reduction in ground clearance. That's why they get an 8. I'm biased for the Bangs for all the reasons stated, and the Badger's a great bumper. So
now, what about the actual handles? Just pick it up and carry in.
That's a good point, actually. They all have a much better handle than the Future Motion one. I definitely like Robert's idea of putting this in here so that if your board does die, you can just loop something through there and you can actually drag it behind you.
Smart.
Really well thought out. Solid handle, feels good. I like the little finger divots that Jeff put in here on the Bangs. They feel good. They feel nice and solid. And then same for this one. I mean, you know, do I have to pick a favorite one? okay, I will. The float, because of the little notches for the finger there. But other than that, they're all very solid, definitely feel good. I've broken the bumper area out of my Future Motion ones, so I don't feel like that's going to happen on any of these things. So definitely a good question and something I didn't even consider. I don't actually try to carry my one wheel very often. It's heavy.
You monitor your battery life well.
I have a CB XR. I don't carry it.
Yeah, right on. Well, cheers, man. Good review.
All right.
Yeah, is there anything else you think we missed, or? It sounds like you covered everything we talked about preliminary to this.
I feel like
as well.
I feel like we did. I don't think there's anything I'm missing. I hope I don't come across as, you know, too biased or anything like that. I wanted to be clear and put that out there, and you know.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's fair that we
Be upfront about it.
explain the bias, but
Yep.
in the end, I think if people are going to relate to you if they also ride the similar style to you. If they don't and they ride mostly street, then maybe they don't care about some of these other features,
Yeah.
and another bumper might be more readily available.
Yeah.
Float life. Not you guys. But and then you might not matter. It might not matter. But
Yeah. So based on all that, I mean, I really don't feel like there's a loser here for anybody that is getting away from the stock Future Motion bumper and picking one of these three. I feel like everybody will be happy. There might be the few people that will notice the little bit of loss of ground clearance there, and that would be a concern for them. And so, you know, that was the standout for me. That was the sort of the one that separated them. If the butter bumpers had even the same bevel as the stock Future Motion there, I feel like I would have had to rate all of them very, very close across the board. I would have still given the nod to the B.A.N.G bumper, mostly because of the material type and the feel and the fact that I'm heavily used to it. But other than that, I really feel like, you know, great options for the one-wheel community here, all much better than Future Motion. So thanks to all three vendors for stepping up and making better products for the community.
Yes.
We certainly appreciate it.
we love it. That's why we're here. We love third-party vendors, all of them. So thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. This is Coda. I don't know if you can see him, but all right.
All right. Beauty.
Yeah, that'll be easy to edit.